Welcome to another episode of Saturday Night Convos. My name's Ashley, and this is my cousin, confidant, and co-host,
Reagan. And here we like to discuss things that are going on in the world.
And what's going on in our own lives.
Nothing is off the table here. So pull up a chair and join us for another Saturday night conversation. Hello, people of the internet. Welcome to Season 2, Ashley. We're just going to call this Season 2. That's the name of it.
Season 2 of Saturday Night Convos.
Yay! And people, you don't know how hard we had to work to even get to this point tonight.
I am not going to lie. We will tell you this. Oh my gosh. I will start off with a story. So, I am technologically disadvantaged, I want to say, just in understanding technology. And so a couple months ago, my headphones that I got with my iPhone died. Just, I'd used them enough. They decided that they no longer wanted to, just the cords.
Okay. Yep.
So I bought like a Bluetooth headset. And I was like, oh, perfect. However, my computer isn't set up for Bluetooth because it's like 6 years old. And so when we started podcasting, I bought just a pair of headphones from the source. And apparently it gives off a bit of an echo. And so when we decided to do season 2, I went back to the source and I now have a gaming set. However, trying to connect the gaming set and get it going was it was about a 35-minute ordeal.
Legitimately 35 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it would be 10, so good times. So happy Saturday night, y'all. We hope your week is going well. Yeah. So
we are so excited to be back, and we have so many different topics that we want to discuss over the next, 10 or 12 weeks, and we are so excited. We think some of them will be really interesting, others, engaging, and if you have anything that you want to add, we'll just say this right off the bat. Email us. Find us on Instagram. Connect with us, because we would love to know what your perspectives are on the topics that we are covering for season 2 of Saturday Night Convos.
We are excited. So tonight's topic. So today, this is really relevant because today is World Mental Health Day. Yeah. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, which we've talked a lot about mental health because it impacts everybody differently. I've talked a lot about anxiety and depression. So I think the fact that, again, this goes out in a week, but, still.
It'll be just as relevant today as it will be in a week.
Exactly. And the fact that we're recording it on World Mental Health Day, I think is really cool. So I looked up the Google Trends for the last 6 months, especially around when COVID hit, around the end of March, and just the Google Trends for just mental health. And right around the end of March, start of April, the searching for mental health had a spike, which I thought was really, really interesting. And it had a spike in Nunavut, the Yukon, Northwest Territories, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then it continued to have spikes.
Wow.
Yeah. So, interesting.
It wouldn't really be a surprise because it would be something, right? But it's interesting that, especially up north, right? I mean, they really didn't get hit as hard as the rest of the country. So
no, none of it just had, I think, its first 2 or 3 cases in the last month and a half.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't have cases for the longest time.
Yeah. Wow.
But I thought
Interesting.
that was pretty interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Indeed.
And then I also found this really cool study that was done by the Mental Health Resource Canada, that said 1 in 5 Canadians has been diagnosed with a depression since the pandemic started.
Wow.
I know, isn't that interesting? So it's really, really relevant. Like, it's a really new study.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just, it's really more and more people are saying, yes, I'm having this happen to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, that is interesting.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, see, I always think about how mental health has become such this huge focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can remember 10 years ago when, and I only bring this up because it's relevant, 10 years ago when my mom died, I was dealing with my own depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But mental health, the conversation around it was just starting.
Yeah.
Like the Bell Let's Talk Day was literally, that was the first year of it. And
Was
now,
it, is it in its 10th year already? I
mm,
should know that. Okay, yes.
yes. And literally now, all you hear about, especially with like little kids, right? And you hear all these diagnoses, anxiety, depression, PTSD, all of this like conversation around it, which I
Mm-hmm.
always find really interesting. Just thinking that, 10 years ago, when I started having these things, I didn't know what to do because I thought
Mm-hmm.
I was really weird. And I didn't really want to talk about it because I didn't want to be put on medication.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, medication, it's not if that's what works for you, great, but doctors freaked me out at the time.
Yeah.
And I thought like if I go on medication, well then I'm going to be like this crazy person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just always amazed at how like the evolution of the conversation,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
come into more like I guess like trending areas. So like if you think like sports leagues, hockey, baseball, football, they all talk about mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Entertainers talk about mental health, right? It's very front and center now, whereas 12, 13 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm. That is
Right?
really, really true.
Yeah.
Like, their entertainers are a lot more open about their struggles, and
Mm-hmm.
they're normalizing it.
They are. Oh, absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
which I think is really positive.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a really good point that over the last 10 years, really, there has been, it's been a really big change.
It has
So,
been. Now I will say I don't know if you get this, but I feel like there are times though where it's just used as a scapegoat, right? If you think like about those big world events that somebody does, the first thing they do is blame mental health.
I think even from like big world events to like I don't want to say all youth, but I know of a particular youth who um it was, I don't know exactly how to word it, but there was consistent um periods where she would just blame it on, or blame things on the fact that like there was self-harm tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
So there was things like that where I think we need to look at the big picture,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of, like, a lot of people go through this.
Yeah.
Like right now, like 1 in 5 people are dealing with this,
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to normalize it and not just blame it, like not just blame everything on the fact that this is happening. And I think the more that we normalize it, the more that we can see that other people go through it too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And the more that we center on it, the more I think it brings us down.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly in that situation, I think it was more of like, I can't do that chore because but I think definitely, right, that when it's depression and anxiety, like unless you're in that particular situation, you can't understand it. And then I also got a really interesting stat from the States, because I find the States really interesting, especially right now with everything going on with Trump and COVID. And I also find West Virginia really interesting because I just, with everything with their overdose rates and everything, I do find it really interesting. So obviously mental health issues have increased during COVID. We know that, with social isolation and all of that fun stuff. So an average weekly data for June 2020 found that 36.5% of adults in the US reported symptoms of anxiety or depressive disorder, up from 11.0% in 2019.
Wow.
Isn't that this is a study done through the Henry J. Kaiser Family Foundation. So from 2019, it was 11% up to 36.5%. I feel like obviously there's some other factors that are influencing that. But that seems really high. So that's like 3 in 10 people are saying that they're experiencing symptoms of depression.
That's insane.
Or depressive symptoms.
Jeez. Wow. That's insane. But, and when you think about it, like their rates of mental health would be even more than us because they've been going through it longer, right? They've been dealing with job loss and health concerns and everything for so much longer.
And they also, we have CERB here.
Yeah.
They don't have that.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's concern about job loss. There's
it's kind of crazy. Sorry to cut you off. It's kind of interesting and crazy and probably not that surprising when you really think about it, but how much mental health is influenced by all the other factors in your life. So your job, your income, your relationships with your family, your health, all of that influences your mental well-being.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
It's really, right, if you just think about it, right? Say you're a single mom, you deal with some depression or whatever, anxiety, and you're like just trying to balance it all, and then all of a sudden your job is potentially, influenced, and it's just, right, it's a balancing act. And when you don't have that time to focus on your mental well-being, it's I don't know. It's like you're trying to carry all of these balls, and then when one kind of falls down, when you're not able to keep on juggling the ball of your mental well-being, and it just starts to slip and you don't have the time to focus on it, it's just I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. And like they talked about the suicide rates and everything, and how like Wisconsin was one of the high, like just I thought that was, I don't know, it's really sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I keep cutting you off today. I'm sorry. I think it just speaks to society's view of how you're supposed to live your life too, right? Like if you're that single mom and you have all of this stuff that you're trying to do, like that's just expected in our society, in our Western North American society, that we have 20 things going on all at once. Whereas you look at a place like in Europe where they're more laid back, right? They take siesta. They close in the afternoon.
Which I would totally be okay with.
Yeah. So actually, I'm interested. You have a computer there. look up and see what the rate of mental illness is in Europe right now.
Yeah, I can do that. Absolutely.
Because it's so based on how society, right? Because we're followers, right? As human beings, we follow the pack.
Yes. It does say there was an article that says mental health is costing Europe a lot.
Oh, I'm just curious to know if it. I mean, lower in general. It would obviously be higher right now, but
yeah. So I found an article that says more than 1 in 6 people in European Union countries have a mental health problem. So wow. That's surprising. So this is from, what year is this from? 2018. So the one that's surprising to me is that the highest is Finland.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Which, as like a, like it's a like a, I wouldn't say it's like a socialist country, but
No, it's a Scandinavian country.
Yeah.
But they are northern, right? So when you only get, although Norway, I'm surprised wouldn't have higher rates comparable to Finland, right? Because
is Norway on here? Just give me a second. Norway is on here, so Norway is the third highest.
So that's not really surprising, right?
So it's Finland, Netherlands, and then Norway is tied with France. So they break down anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, alcohol and drug use, bipolar and schizophrenia, and then others.
Yeah.
So,
but in general, you've got 1 in 5 in Canada, 1 in
6,
3 in 10 in the US, and 1 in 6.
Yeah.
In Europe.
So 1 in 6 is actually right, like.
Yeah.
And they're accounting for alcohol and drug use, which technically alcohol and drug use, like it's more normalized over there too.
Right. Yeah.
But interesting.
Go ahead, just pull down your mic just a little bit. You're breathing into it. There you go. Perfect.
Asthma, I breathe a lot.
I know.
And I breathe heavy.
I know. It's like
but yeah, I found that interesting.
Yeah. But anyways, like we were saying, society does play a big role in the way that we deal with things and live life, and the way that our mental health is affected. And it really isn't surprising that Finland and the Scandinavian countries are at the top of that European list because of the environment that they live in, right?
No.
Yeah.
You are right.
But it's that holistic approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know. I'm always amazed by the way that even in our physical health, everything is interwoven, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, it's like they say trauma. Like trauma, even if you don't show that you've experienced trauma, it's like in your body.
Absolutely.
And like it's how you move, and it's still there.
Yep, for sure.
So,
for sure.
Yeah. So I have a question. Would you agree? So like COVID burnout, like even if you're like, if it's somebody that's worked in ER, like would you agree that COVID burnout is affecting populations different depending on their socioeconomic status?
I would say so. Like, do you mean like for example, people who are in lower wage jobs would be on the front lines more so than a person in a higher wage job who would be working from home?
Yeah. Or yeah.
Yeah, or a doctor or a nurse working in a hospital. Absolutely. I think, and studies have shown that, I mean, lower wage or lower income populations, they're mostly minority populations.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to have have had COVID or will get COVID more often than other income level earners. And I mean, they work in the grocery stores, they work, they do the garbage removal, they work in the factories. 100%. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I agree with you on that. Um, I also think, right, like for individuals who are of a higher socioeconomic status, they have the ability not to return to work if they don't want to.
Yeah.
So they have that extra cushion, they have that choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's very true.
I know somebody, or I know friend of a friend or whatever. Um, she didn't want to send her kids back to school, but she had to go to work. So, she's dealing with the struggle of constantly checking on what the numbers are in the schools, and because she's working to support her family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, do you think the social stigmas surrounding mental health will be lessened due to the normalcy surrounding depression in the age of COVID? So, we're talking a lot about mental health right now. So, but there's still a lot of stigmas surrounding not just like anxiety and depression has been like it's a topic that a lot of people are talking about, but still like um mental disorders like schizophrenia, bipolar, there's still a lot of stigmas around them. Do you think in general social stigmas will be lessened after COVID, or do you think those stigmas will still be here?
That's a hard one because those stigmas have been around for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, if you're relating it back to schizophrenia, bipolar, or anything like that, I think those are very still niche topics,
Mm-hmm.
and the stigma from those isn't easily removed. Whereas, like you said, anxiety and depression, and even I feel like PTSD is becoming more normalized as well in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Those things are more easily accepted
Mm-hmm.
as being normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's you're right. I think we're the more we see something, the more we hear about something, like in terms of anxiety and depression, I don't think it's okay that that those are normalized, and like schizophrenia and bipolar and like the other ranges of, I can't think of what the words um are not normalized, because so many people have to deal with them and be afraid of discussing what their experience,
Yeah.
about what their experiences
Yeah.
with those diagnoses are.
Yeah.
So my hope is that with the normalcy of mental health, it will get better.
Right. So
But
you're a social worker, so you have a lot of background in this. So how long, like if you're saying that these things will become normalized, or you hope they'll become normalized, how long do you think it would take in terms of like number of years to have these things mainstreamed more so?
I think the more that we do like walks, and the more that, right, there's walks for, like, there's suicide awareness month, I think that's this month, or there's a week in September. So the more that we do walks like that, and the more that we just do like Facebook campaigns and that kind of stuff, the more that you discuss what people go through. And I think in the next 10 years, hopefully, people won't just stare at people who are going through like schizophrenia. Like, I've watched a lot of TED Talks of people who have gone through schizophrenia and who have been diagnosed young. And I don't know, I'm hoping in the next 10 years.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's 2020, like
Yeah.
again, people who were experiencing mental health were institutionalized until 1960, and look how far we've come in 60 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. For sure.
so,
For sure.
yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Again, you already said your thoughts, but what are your thoughts on like a timeline?
Well, as I said, I think it'll take a long
Like time.
time for
Mm-hmm.
these niche sort of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I don't know how many people a year get bipolar disorder,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not as high as the percentage of people that experience anxiety or depression,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like every person that you pass on the street corner is experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As a like right now you walk down the street and every person you pass in the past 6 or 8 months has likely experienced an episode of anxiety or an
Oh,
episode of depression
that's true.
or that feeling of hopelessness because
Mm-hmm.
the world is turned upside down and right side up.
Yeah.
So I personally, I think 10 years is generous, but
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't have the background that you do in um, the mental health field. So
Again, right? Like we've all, right? Like 1 in 5 people in Canada right now have been diagnosed with depression
yeah,
since the beginning of the pandemic. And I think, right, if you've experienced or if you've been diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar or ODD or whatever you've been diagnosed with, you've experienced those feelings. So I think normalizing mental health in general
mm-hmm.
is just the start of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. Did you want to talk about anything else before we go into our own experiences?
I don't know. I will just say I work in the schools,
Mhm.
so I've been seeing a lot of people wearing masks and stuff, and you just have to think about like the way that this will affect,
Youth.
especially this generation of kids,
Mhm.
um, just like their mental well-being and also their social and emotional well-being. But how will
Mm.
this affect them in 10 years? Right? Will their way of thinking have been changed so drastically that they're kind of kids are resilient, so they're not going to be afraid, but they're just going to look at the world in a different way than other generations have because of this, I
Mhm.
think. And there'll be a huge like knowledge gap as well. But that doesn't have anything to do with mental health. My point is that everybody's experiencing this right now and it's everywhere. And it'll just grow to be a bigger problem. Like, right? I mean, mental health
Mhm.
isn't going away. Mental health problems aren't going away anytime soon. Right? So
No.
yeah.
And even like I'm doing a group project right now. So on youth and just like the wait lists. So there was wait lists before COVID
Mm-hmm.
to get testing and um but what are those wait lists going to look like after COVID or during COVID? Um so yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a really I feel for youth who are in school and like the feelings that are like resonating with them. Uh I know like my 4-year-old is just like I don't want to even say like hyperactive, but has a lot of just feelings.
Yeah.
And I really just have to like sit him down and just we talk about feelings a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you have that open dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there are, I mean, not all parents, but there are some parents out there that are afraid to have that conversation, right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
easily just kind of sweep it under the rug. But I think, as I said, in the next 10 years, this generation of kids, their way of thinking is going to be completely altered.
Mm-hmm.
And, hopefully they come out of it for the better. And like I said, they're resilient, but they're going to see the world in a completely different way.
Is a unique time.
It truly is. It truly is.
How have, we're talking about mental health and we're talking about COVID, and, I look like a telemarketer in my gaming headset. How have your experiences over the last seven months?
No, we're almost up to 8 now.
Okay. Wow.
Uh,
How have your experiences over that last 8 months, affected your mental health, changed how you have done your daily life? Like, how have your experiences been?
okay, so let's break this down because I'm a structural person. So in general, um, the whole going into quarantine thing didn't really faze me because I had already dealt with that. It was the not being able to go anywhere or do anything that was my problem, and that's where a lot of my anxiety came from. And then compound that with being laid off. I've never been laid off before, and I
Mm-hmm.
experienced the um, the uncertainty with that, right? About, I mean, before CERB came out, I was like, well, how am I going to pay my car bill? How am I going to pay my car insurance? I don't have a lot of bills, and I'm thankful for that, but that was still a huge weight on my mind. Um, so yeah, so I dealt with a lot of anxiety, and then compound that with having my dad home. And I love my father. I do. But he's been a man that has gone to work for, well, he's worked at the same job since I was born. So let's say 28 years, right? And in the past 10 years, he's gone to work every day. And I've, I've had the ability to, if I'm home, have the house to myself. So I can think, or I can have that quiet time, or I can do my work, or I can just have my space,
Mm-hmm.
right? So with him in the house, that space that I had suddenly became a lot smaller. And all of a sudden, he was always there, asking
Yeah.
where I was going, what I was doing, who I was talking to. And it just got to be a lot,
Yeah.
right? And I found myself, like, even still, honestly, it's been almost 8 months and I'm still not completely adjusted because he's always there. He's and that for him, that's his mental health, right? Because he for the probably not the first time, but he was forced to, he realized he was having anxiety because of this COVID thing because it was freaking him out
Mm-hmm.
and the implications that getting this virus could have for him.
Mm-hmm.
So just dealing with that has also been a lot. Um, yeah. What was the second part to that question?
What are things that you did to, deal with that anxiety, or
Um, okay.
steps you
So
took?
I okay, well, oh, I'm all tangled up. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about this before. I spent a lot of time in the woods.
I like how you
I
have a wood screen on today too.
I know, right? I explored forests and parks all around southwestern Ontario, and honestly, it's one thing that coming out of COVID, that is like one of the things that I want to keep doing, that I want to purpose myself to make that time to do. Because I have found that going into the nature, going into the woods, and just being the only person there, and being with my thoughts and being in creation is
Mm-hmm.
just a really good grounding experience for me,
It is.
right? To be like, I'm just one person in this big world, and there is all of this stuff around me, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Going to be okay. So I've spent a lot of time in the woods. I got back into photography. I picked up my hobby again, and I started
Mm-hmm.
documenting that on the internet. So that was kind of cathartic for me. Writing has always been cathartic, so I did start writing
Mm-hmm.
some. Um, and then I wasn't necessarily, so I had mentioned before I got laid off, and that really freaked me out. So I was at a point where I didn't know what I was doing, right? When you're, I mean, we're both 28. So we often, these 20 something people, we often have these pictures of where we're supposed to be in life, but when that picture doesn't match up with where we are and we start comparing ourselves to our peers,
Yes.
we get freaked out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Oh
where
yeah.
I found myself, because I'm like, I'm 27. I was 27 at the time. I'm living in my father's house. I don't have a job right now because I'm laid off.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing with my life when people my age are buying homes and having careers and doing all this stuff and having families and kids and all this stuff? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I need to figure my shit out. So, I sat down and I'm like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And I went back to school. I'm applying to, a master's of audiology program for next year in teachers college, and I still think I'm crazy. There are still days where I'm like, why am I doing this to myself?
We're all a little bit crazy.
But at the same time, I'm like, I want to be able to have a career. And if this is the path towards that career that I find to be fulfilling and purposeful, well, then this is what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was a big answer, but that is basically all that I have done to try and cope with my anxiety during this time.
It was a good answer though.
Thanks. I didn't even get into going back to work. So,
Yeah, but that's like a separate answer because you went back to work in the schools. So, like, just preparing for that probably took,
oh, well, you know what?
right?
I was excited. I was excited to go back to work. But then what is it? Rubber meets the road and
Yeah.
like reality comes back, right? I have found myself struggling with,
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, you go into, like, somebody was telling me today, you do the same job, but you have to take 10 different steps to get from point A to point B because of all the protocols,
Yeah.
right? And you constantly in your mind thinking, okay, who am I around? What have I touched?
Mm-hmm.
Is my mask okay? Right? Like, what's going on all around? And it's exhausting.
I know.
It's
And
exhausting.
it makes me almost think, like, of how we used to be. And,
Mm-hmm.
like, because I worked, like, one on one with clients, like, I was around people all the time. And,
Yeah.
like, we never thought about that. So it's such a different
Yeah.
way of being.
It really is. Yeah. No, in the past few weeks, I've found myself exhausted at night, like wanting to go to bed at like 9 or
Mm-hmm.
9:30 when I usually go to bed at 11,
Yeah.
right? And just not fully being happy because there are so many other things that I want to do, but I'm trying to live, right? It's that one
Yeah.
foot in, one foot out, trying to get back into things when you've been forced to sit and rest and just be
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for such a long period of time. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's very, it's a unique way we are living right now.
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did you deal with your stress and the whatever the rest of the question was that I just
Um,
answered? Let's do
uh,
you next. This will be fun.
so kind of like you, I was like when schools kind of closed, I was actually laid off from my job. So, which, worked out well because my son was home. Um, but for me, it hit me. It wasn't just COVID, it was the fact that I was laid off.
Mm-hmm.
I've never, again, been laid off from a job. It hit me. Um, so it, I was fine being home. Like, I just laid around watching it, right? Like, I
Yeah.
didn't do a lot. We couldn't go out. There was no parks open. We didn't see anybody, right? Like, so it was fine for me for about a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of started getting to me. Um, I feel like I was definitely a little bit depressed. Not only just because like COVID, but because of like I lost my job. Like that definitely hit me. Um, so that was about a month, and then like we started seeing people again
Mm-hmm.
about a month and a half in. So that was until like middle of March.
Mm-hmm.
And then like it slowly started getting better. Um like I started exercising, that started helping. I definitely gained weight.
That
Yeah.
quarantine 15, it's real.
I
It's
yeah,
real.
it was like the quarantine 25. That was fun. Like not gonna lie. I just like the first month I just ate chips on
Yeah.
it was a really fun time. Lots of chips. And yeah, it just slowly got better. I ended up applying for my master's in social work. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing my master's in social work. I'm also homeschooling my son. And then like towards like during the summer, we did bike rides and we did lots of stuff outside. So I think more when the summer hit, it just kind of was like, okay, I might as well enjoy the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely the first couple months was just I just felt like shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. For
like the
sure.
first month, I was like, oh, might as well just binge watch this on Netflix. Um, but definitely towards the end of the summer, I was like, let's go do this. Let's go for a bike ride. I was definitely enjoying my time at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now working again, which I'm enjoying. Like, I'm really the kind of person, like, work thrives me. Like, I love working. I've been working since I was like 12. Again, I've lived on a dairy farm, so it was basically expected. Um, but I've always had a job. So not having a job really, it kind of defines me. Probably not in a healthy way. Um, so I'm really excited to have a job again. And but yeah, like it was probably like exercising. I'm back at the gym, which I'm excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And just being outside and like going for bike rides and stuff. And I saw a few select friends,
Yeah.
went for walks and stuff. I know you walked your dog a lot.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did walk my dog.
How do you think, because the second wave, if you're in the United States, your first wave hasn't really ever ended because cases haven't gone below like 30,000, but whatever. But here in Canada, at least, and in Ontario, we are expecting we're not expecting, we're experiencing the second wave of coronavirus now.
Yeah.
How do you think as we go into the winter, right? Because you mentioned like getting out and seeing people, and I found that made a huge difference for me when I started seeing my friends again,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't realize it, right? People can be challenging at times, and you don't always want to be social. You don't always want to be outgoing.
Yeah.
But the human connection
It's huge.
is huge, and it's very real, and it benefits your mental health, since we're talking about mental health,
Mm-hmm.
enormously. So
Yeah.
as we're going into, we're in October now, so October, November, December, January, February, March, here in Canada, that's winter season. So
Mhm.
how do you think, people maybe not always having a choice to spend so much time outside as they do inside, how do you think that will kind of affect, you know, will there be another rise in mental health, or will people kind of have the tools in place to be able to deal with the things that they might experience?
I'm not sure, in all honesty. I think they. I actually, one of the articles I read, um, it was basically saying that I don't remember if it was the one in the article in Canada or the U.S., but it was basically saying, or actually it was the Canada article, but it was basically saying that individuals who were diagnosed with like a mental health disorder like schizophrenia or whatever, or bipolar, were not continuing treatment since the pandemic. So, um, when you add like winter on top of that, um, I I think we will see a rise in mental health.
Yeah.
And then once you add COVID on top of that, I think our numbers are. I don't think winter's going to help.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
and
know I
then,
know
sorry.
that I, I know that gym equipment has been flying off the shelves. It's like the new toilet paper.
Yeah.
So people definitely know that they want to be active, and that's a form of coping. But
Yeah.
like in terms of like being able to socialize with people, right?
Mhm.
And get outside and do those active activities. If you're not a skier or a snowboarder,
Mhm.
you're kind of like between a rock and a hard place with things to do.
Yeah. And like they just announced that they're closing gyms, and I saw Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I know they're worried about closing gyms in Windsor, Essex. So, I actually am thinking I'm canceling my gym membership. So, ugh. I don't want to, but like I'm like I only go once a week. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can just work out at home,
Well,
especially if COVID's going to be around for a while.
yeah. Yeah, but it's also your getaway time, right?
I know.
It's your
I don't
you
know.
it's your you time, and that's another important thing about, right?
Mhm.
Having those.
Mental health. It's important to have time for yourself.
Exactly.
But yeah, I haven't
Exactly.
decided yet. Um. So yeah, but I do enjoy my time at the gym. So yeah, I don't know. I know, like here, like people are still having Thanksgiving and stuff. I don't know about there.
You know what? Well, I can't. We did our COVID style Thanksgiving today. So if you are an American and you are listening, it is Canadian Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving! But we did it. We all sat outside. There were six of us. We were, that social distance apart. We
Mhm.
did pizza. It was, use the tongs or whatever and take what you want. Don't put anything back. Wash your
Mhm.
hands. It was COVID Thanksgiving, and I drank all the way through it because what the fuck else do you do, right? That's it. That's the other thing. Like, I'm sure like stocks in alcohol have gone sky high because of this.
In the American article I read, it said that there was an increase in alcohol or an increase in substance
You
dependence.
know what? I can relate because I now drink on a weekly basis. Every Saturday when I sit down with you, I don't today because I've done my liver in for the day. Two is enough for me. I sound like a lightweight. I know. I'm sorry. I tried a new lager last night. I
Oh
found a
yeah.
lager that I actually like. I'm not a huge beer person. I'm more of a cider person.
I like, you know what? I do really like ciders.
Yeah.
But it depends on the beer. I don't like dark beers,
Yeah.
but
This one was called the Crack Canoe.
hmm,
From Moosehead. It was good.
interesting.
Good. Anyways, the point is that since like May, I have found myself drinking on a more regular basis. When before, I would drink once every few months.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I also live across from a beer store. It is a busy place.
Are there still lineups outside of it?
It depends. They're only doing returns, like bottle returns on Monday and Wednesday.
Oh,
Then it is very busy.
oh, that's funny.
Do you have any other thoughts on mental health and the coronavirus?
Um, Not really. Only to say that I mean, Corona. They're estimating that this virus won't really be eradicated until 2024.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that. That is
Yes. You
interesting.
know what? They keep promising a vaccine by the end of 2020. Not everybody's going to be vaccinated by this time next year. It's going to be 2024. So, I mean, our reality of what 2019 was and what 2020 has been,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going back to 2019 anytime soon.
Mm-mm.
We can get close. I mean, stage 3 here, that's close.
Yeah.
Not 100%, it's close.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think just our way of coping with this and accepting this and taking it for what it is, I think the mental health challenges will continue for a very long time on this topic.
I think what concerns me is so my partner is a firefighter, my partner is a volunteer firefighter, in a small town. So basically, like, if there's, like medicals, they typically respond or are backup. And there were like at least 3 suicides in the last like month and a half.
Wow.
So
Wow.
what concerns me about COVID is, yes, there's mental health challenges.
Yeah.
But it's when people feel like there is no other way out. So
Yeah.
I think leaving it at today looks bad. Tomorrow might not look great,
Yeah.
but just remember, there's always a light.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we can post some resources for hotlines. So,
Yeah.
because nobody wants to, because I don't know what to say to that.
Well, I mean, you're right though. You're so
It's
right because I mean, we talked about how everything was tied, right? Everything is tied to mental health and it's
yeah,
all symbiotic. Well, the
yeah,
economy is just as important
mhm,
to that symbiotic nature, and especially small businesses, right? And
yeah.
people losing jobs and
It's huge, especially
livelihoods.
say it's a small business owner and they're just like, oh my God, I can't pay my guys. And then they're like, what the fuck do I do? And
Yeah,
it's just like, okay, well, then they feel no other way out. And,
yeah,
depression and anxiety and all of this stuff. And it's, it's really, really a sad time for some people.
yeah,
And, I think we need to remove the stigma. And so we're thinking of everybody out there. And I think this was a really good episode.
I
I
think
think we
yeah,
we covered a lot of stuff. Check out um, wherever you're watching for the numbers. So if you are having any thoughts, or if you know of anybody is just feeling down, make sure that you pass on the numbers. Other than that, we are really excited to be back with season 2 of Saturday Night Convos. I hope that you guys can hear me because I feel like I am flying. Boeing 347. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing soon. Reagan, do you have any other thoughts?
Oh my goodness. We can hear you loud and clear, Captain. Coming in for landing.
Oh my god.
Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us this week. You can check us out on Instagram. You can check us out on Twitter. You can find us on all the major streaming platforms. If you know people who are struggling with this topic of mental health, because let's be honest, we're all experiencing this. You know, so often we feel like we are alone in our boat and like nobody can understand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a cruddy time and it's a not so great thing to experience, you know, anxiety, depression, whatever else that you're going through, but know that you are not alone.
Exactly.
You're not the only one in your boat. There are people next door to you, down the street, in your job, at your school, across the world that are experiencing the exact same things you are. So if you know somebody that just needs some encouragement or to know that they aren't alone, share this episode with them. Pass this along. Because, I mean, if we can help one person, then that's great.
And really, the best thing to do is just, if somebody doesn't look right, is to ask and then share a number for a hotline. Because if somebody is looking like they're not doing well, typically go with your gut feeling.
Yeah. And if you have any comments or questions about what you've heard today, you can, again, you can hit us up on Instagram, but you can also email us at saturdaynightconvos@gmail.com. And we would love to chat with you about whatever might be on your mind. All right, guys.
Have a great night.